I want to now move to the next item. Last week, we were looking at precisely what we call tips on how to successfully study biology and discover or realize your full potential. Today, we are going to look at one of the topics that you identified as challenging, and I want to demystify or to make it very simple to you, precisely on how you can read, understand, and be able to answer questions. And maybe without taking much time, I beg to just share my screen so that we can start right away. The topic is excretion and homeostasis. The topic is excretion and homeostasis. And we need just to start right away. Now, this topic, excretion and homeostasis, somehow the examiner have discovered that the runners have a challenge, and it has been tested KCSE. And it takes an iron share, by the way. I think the examiners have discovered that the runners have some challenges, especially the area that deals with the homeostasis. To start with, I think we are expected to be in a position to define excretion as well as homeostasis. Maybe I can start from there. What happens is that in the body of an organism, let's take, for example, the human body. There are metabolic processes, okay? When we talk of metabolism, metabolism is a general term that refers to all the biological reactions that take place in the living cells. So some of these metabolic reactions, they produce metabolic wastes. Now, these wastes cannot be allowed to accumulate in the cells, in the sense that they can reach a level that can be toxic, that can kill the cells. And that's why your body has an elaborate excretory system. It has organs well designed to make it possible for the body to get rid of the metabolic wastes. For example, when the cells respire, when the cells in your body respire, carbon dioxide is released as a metabolic waste. And the organ responsible for excretion is the lungs. Okay? So, carbon dioxide is continuously excreted or removed out of your body as a metabolic waste through the lungs. We have other examples, like the urea, which is produced in your kidneys. Yeah, it's also a metabolic waste that must be removed from your body through the kidneys. So it is passed out in urine. Now, excretion, as I said, ensures that metabolic wastes are removed from your body so that they don't accumulate to a level that can be toxic. Now, going to homeostasis. Now, the cells in your body have an immediate environment in which they operate. That is what we call internal environment, the immediate surrounding of the cells. And that environment must be maintained. The factors must be regulated to ensure that the cells are functioning without being affected by the changes that take place in that working environment. So the process that is responsible for maintaining the steady state internal environment is what we call homeostasis. So this topic is therefore divided into two. We have the excretion part and we have the homeostasis. Without much ado, I beg to now move to the first part of that topic, and that is what we call excretion. So excretion, maybe taking you back to what you covered in Form 1, characteristics of living things. I think excretion was one of those characteristics. I don't know whether you've ever interacted with this gentleman called Mr. Yes, I'm sure you have interacted with this gentleman called Mr. Nigger. Have you interacted with this gentleman? M is movement, a topic covered in Form 4. R, respiration, a topic you cover in Form 2. N, nutrition, topic covered in Form 1. I, irritability, topic covered in Form 4. Growth and development, topic in Form 3. Gaseous exchange, topic covered in Form 2. Excretion is what we are now looking at. Then we have reproduction, a topic covered in Form 3. So this is the acronym for the common characteristics of living things. So you only need to remember Mr. Nigger, and you have your 8 characteristics of living organisms. So excretion is therefore one of the characteristics of living things. All living things carry out excretion. Okay, all the living things must remove the metabolic waste that are produced in their bodies. So we move to the next slide. So this one now gives us some of the examples of nitrogenous wastes. If it is in the human body, we have urea, we have uric acid, we have ammonia. Okay, we have excess water, quinine, lecithin, mineral salt. These ones are in plants. We'll be able to look at that later on. So, and you can see why this metabolic waste needs to be removed. Otherwise, if around to accumulate, they will result into, this would change the environment in which cells operate and can even result to death of the cells. Now, as we look at this topic, there are some 3 terms that the students need to appreciate or to understand very well. We have excretion, secretion, and EGESTION. These 3 terms students tend to confuse. So you look at excretion, it is quite clear. It is about the removal of metabolic wastes from the body of organisms. Wastes arising from metabolic activities in the body. Now you look at, let me first of all talk about, I won't talk about this first. I'm talking about that and this one. Okay, so the wastes arising from metabolic activities, the process of separating the waste and getting rid of it, removing it from the body, that's what we call excretion. Now, EGESTION is different. EGESTION, it is the removal of, for example, if you talk about the human body, when we take food, when we ingest food, digestion takes place, absorption takes place, and we have the food which is undigested. We have the indigested food materials which is indigestible. Now, that process of removing the undigested and indigestible food materials from the alimentary canal through the anus is what we call EGESTION. It can also, or it also happens even in other organisms. I give an example here. A microscopic organism like Paramecium, for example. It may ingest food materials, and some of what it has ingested is not digestible, or some of it is not digested. So the Paramecium, okay, let me draw the Paramecium. I can even give an example of the amoeba. Okay, amoeba has ingested a food material. Okay, so what happens in that process? Sorry, let me just draw something nice. So let's assume that this is a amoeba. It has ingested a food particle. So the food now is enclosed in what we call a food vacuole. Now, this food is digested, and there are some materials which are not digestible, or what has not been digested. So the removal of undigested and indigestible food materials from a food vacuole is also egestion. That's the point I wanted to drive home. Now, coming back to the other process which the runners tend to confuse, that is egestion. Sorry. I mean secretion. Secretion simply, it is the release of useful substances by the cells. Secretions. A secretion is a useful substance that is released by the cell. For example, in your mouth as we speak, you have saliva. Saliva is a useful substance which is secreted by salivary glands. So in your salivary glands, there are secretory cells which are able to secrete that particular substance. Hormones, enzymes, sebum, these are useful substances. So that process of releasing useful substances by the cells is what we call secretion. So these three terms, therefore, needs to be understood very well. Okay, so any questions so far about these three processes? You can raise up your hand. I'll give you an opportunity, or you can. So if there are no questions, I beg to move to the next item, where we are going to watch a video that clearly shows what I was trying to explain. So we can watch this short video.
It's Michelle, your CSC biology tutor again. Welcome back to the Know the Differences series, in which I go through with you important terms that you need to understand. In this video, I'll be looking at getting rid of waste. And we're going to be focusing on these two processes, which some people tend to get mixed up, excretion and egestion. So you really need to know the differences between these two processes, which both remove different types of waste from the body. Alright, let's look at the first one, excretion. Now, excretion is concerned with the removal of metabolic waste from the body. So key points to remember is that the wastes are produced from metabolic reactions. So you may be asking, what exactly are metabolic reactions? So these are any chemical reactions taking place within our cells. So think of like respiration, photosynthesis in plants. So these metabolic reactions, they produce useful products, but they also produce waste products as well. And the waste products need to be removed in order to prevent buildup of these toxic products that can actually be harmful to the body. So the key organs that you need to remember, the excretory organs, include the lungs, the kidneys, and the skin. So we're going to look at those in a little greater detail here. So first of all, the lungs. The lungs are responsible for excreting expired air. So this is air that we breathe out. And this air would contain carbon dioxide and water vapor, which would have been produced from the process of respiration in our cells. So we need to especially remove that buildup of carbon dioxide. We don't want carbon dioxide building up in the body. So when we breathe out, we're trying to excrete that carbon dioxide. Now the second organ, the kidneys, they're responsible for excreting urine. So urine is that liquid that is removed from the body, and it contains water, salts, and urea. So those are the main substances that you would find in the urine. Now the skin is the last excretory organ, and that excretes the heat and the sweat. So it's responsible for temperature regulation, so getting rid of that excess heat that builds up in the body. And then in terms of the liquid that is produced, which is the sweat, that contains water, salts, and urea. So you can see these substances are pretty similar to the content of the urine, but they'll be in different proportions. So the lungs, the kidneys, and the skin, those are the excretory organs that you need to know, and you need to know their products. Now let's move on to look at egestion. Now, egestion is the removal of undigested waste from the body. So the key points to remember is that this undigested waste will be coming mostly from the fiber-rich foods that we eat. So from fruits and vegetables, when we eat our oats. So these foods are rich in fiber, meaning that it contains a lot of cellulose, that material that comes from plants. So cellulose cannot be digested. We don't have the enzymes to break down cellulose like how cows do when they eat grass. So what happens is that the fiber is going to pass through the digestive tract without any changes occurring to it. So there's no digestion by enzymes, as I just said. So pretty much this waste is going to be removed from the colon as feces, which is commonly referred to as stool. So that is what egestion is all about. So removing that undigested food material from the colon out of the body as feces. Alright, so now you should know the differences between excretion and egestion.
Now, I hope you are now very clear about the two processes. I hope it's clear from the short video we have watched. And now straight away, I want to move to excretion in plants. And maybe the most important thing to understand about the excretion in plants is that plants do not have well-defined excretory system like the one we find in animals, like human beings, as we have seen from a system consisting of the skin, as you have seen, the kidneys, the lungs, to mention but a few. For the plants, such a well-defined excretory system do not exist for direct elimination of their waste. Then what reasons do we give for that? Why is it that plants have not developed a well-defined excretory system for direct elimination of their metabolic waste? What reasons? This must be very clear. Number one, they accumulate very little toxic waste. So if you are to compare the rate of metabolism in plants and animals, in animals, the rate of metabolism is high, right? So plants accumulate little waste. Now, number two, most of the waste that the plant produces are formed slowly. So remember, the rate of metabolism is slow. So there is slow accumulation, there is slow production of the same. Now, I think you can also see the next point. Some of the waste products the plant produces are used again within the same plant. Plant reuse some. The key word here, if you are told to state, there is the key word, some. Okay? Not all. Supposing you are asked to state reasons why plants don't have well-defined excretory system for direct elimination of their metabolic waste, you would say, plants reuse some of their metabolic waste. That's when you score the use of the word some, because they don't, they don't reuse all of their metabolic waste. Okay, the other point is about the storage. Plants are able to convert their toxic waste in non-toxic form. Non-toxic waste in non-toxic form. You can see this. Toxic wastes being converted into non-toxic form and then being stored. Okay? They store. The toxic waste plants produce are converted into non-toxic form, and then they are stored in the tissues and organs. For example, when you find the plant leaves falling. The old leaves fall. Okay? A very simple process of getting rid of metabolic waste, because the aging leaves contain metabolic waste stored in them in non-toxic form. So some of the organs where we have this stored waste, we have the flowers, we have the leaves, we have the fruits, we have the bark, where some of these metabolic waste are stored. As you can see, some of these stored waste, like the tannins, resins, calcium oxalate, and others. So very, very important to understand the reasons why plants lack a well-defined excretory system. So the points are quite clear. Then I move to the next slide. So these are more metabolic wastes which are stored in plants in non-toxic form. So later on, we'll be able to look at these metabolic wastes. Some of them are very, very important in our economy. They even very, very important in our livelihoods. Okay. Some of the metabolic waste may also be removed through a simple process like diffusion, like if it is carbon dioxide produced maybe by plants at night as the plants respire. By simple diffusion, the plant gets rid of that metabolic waste. Now, the plants get rid of metabolic waste. The fact that plants do not have well-defined transport system, I mean well-defined, not transport, well-defined excretory system, doesn't mean that plants do not remove or carry out excretion. So we have very simple processes through which plants are able to get rid of their metabolic waste. And one of them, as I have just explained, you can see we have diffusion, transpiration. I hope you understand this. Loss of water in vapor form. We have leaf fall, as you can see. Shedding of leaves, because within the leaves we have some metabolic waste stored there. As we have seen, some of these metabolic waste, like caffeine, carbonate and alkaloids, morphine nicotine, they are found stored in the plant organs like the leaves or the fruits. So we can talk of leaf fall, shedding of the leaves, even fruit fall, as a simple process of getting rid of waste from plants. Then we have guttation is another process, exudation. We have seen in some plants the sticky substance exuding from the stem through the bark. That sticky substance, has metabolic waste in it. Then we also talk about deposition of the wastes, where they are deposited in plant parts in that non-toxic form. That process of deposition in that non-toxic form is a mechanism of ensuring that when as the fruits fall, like let's say we have the fruiting season in a particular plant like the mango or avocado, as the fruits mature and fall off, there was deposition of some of these metabolic waste. So by deposition and the eventual fall off of these plant parts is a mechanism of getting rid of metabolic waste. So there is a short video here.
Excretion in plants. Excretion in plants is much simpler than that of animals. Plants do not have any special organs for removal of waste. Gaseous excretory materials are eliminated by diffusion through the stomata. Many plants eliminate waste by its accumulation of waste in the vacuoles of the aging leaf cells. These leaves will eventually die and fall off, removing waste in the process. In some plants, waste products are stored as resins and gum in the old xylem. Have you ever noticed a sticky, milky, or oily substance oozing out from the bark of trees? These are excretory products substance to the soil around them. In some plants, waste is in the form of calcium oxalate crystals called as raphides. These are needle-shaped and therefore hurt and cause itching. For example, colocasia leaves and the outer skin of the onion. Some plant wastes are very useful to human beings, such as rubber latex, gum, resins, and essential oils like eucalyptus or sandalwood oil. Rubber latex is used to produce gloves. The hard, transparent resins are principally used for varnishes and adhesives, while the softer resins and gum resins containing essential oils are more largely used for therapeutic purposes and incense.
Okay, so from that short video, I believe you are able to see precisely what I was talking about. It was quite clear how plants are able to get rid of their metabolic waste in a very simple processes. And the last point, as the video was coming to an end, the narrator talked about importance of some of these metabolic waste that we find in plants. So we run this under what we call economic importance of excretory products in plants. So as we speak, we all take tea. What is in the tea that we take? Okay, we put tea that has been obtained from the tea leaves. What is in the tea leaves that we need to put into the soft drink or the beverages that we take? Yeah, what is that substance in the coffee berries that is taken as a beverage? Yeah? So this is what we are talking about. And maybe we'll be able to look at that shortly. And the economic importance of excretory products in plants. Economic importance. So these substances we find stored in plants' organs. Some of them have a very major role that they play in the human or in making the life of human beings comfortable or maybe meaningful. People making money out of that. Like when we talk about rubber, okay, we see we are talking about manufacturing of tires and shoes. Yeah, you can imagine the vehicles we have in this world that runs on tires coming from the rubber. So you can imagine the economic importance of that. We have the gum produced from, I believe you can see the acacia used in food and process, food processing and the printing industry. We have caffeine, of course, used as a stimulant. I just talked about it. So caffeine, which we find in coffee berries as well as in tea leaves. Okay, so caffeine is a metabolic waste in those plants. And you can see, and how useful these substances are in as far as the human life is concerned. So I want to move very fast. We have the quinine, we have the treatment of malaria. Of course, you can see where it comes from, as a stored metabolic waste in the bark of Cinchona tree. We have the tanning leather. You can imagine. The shoes, the handbags, and all those materials made from leather. This tanning is very, very important in that process of changing the animal skin into the leather that we know. We have cocaine, found in the coca plant, can be used as a local anesthesia agent when surgical operations are done. It can be introduced into the patients and to relieve pain. But of course, people have abused it. We cannot maybe avoid talking about that. We have the cannabis, very important in manufacture of insecticides and narcotic drugs. People have also abused that particular metabolic waste we find in the cannabis sativa plant. We have cats, cat and uris. So these are things that we are all conversant with. Nicotine in the tobacco, the cigarettes, and all that can also bring up far-reaching effects. It's carcinogenic. It has the tar in it, which can cause the cancer. I believe you can see that. We have papain. Of course, you can see the pawpaw plant, the pawpaw fruit, the peeling. That's where it is deposited. Very important in food industry, in softening of maybe meats, for example. You have the last one, which is an alkaloid extracted from plants of genus Catchcam. You can see it can be used for treatment of some diseases. Hope you can see that. So as we talk about the economic importance of the plant excretory products, so the excretory products, let's not lose our discussion. The topic is about excretion, and in particular, we are focusing on excretion in plants. We started by talking about the lack of an elaborate excretory system in plants. We gave reasons for that. We went ahead and looked at the different methods that plants use to carry out excretion. And now we've just discussed the economic importance of the metabolic wastes that are produced by plants. And maybe we can have a short video on that economic importance. Maybe we can understand more after watching the video.
Economic importance of plant excretory products. There are many products of excretion produced by plants that are of great economic and medicinal use to man. These include the following. 1. Tannins. Tannins are deposited in dead tissues of wood and bark of some trees, such as the wattle trees, acacia, conifers, and mangroves. Tannins are used commercially for treatment of leather, that is, to process skin, the raw skin, and turn it into leather. Tannins are also used to manufacture inks and dyes. Some of these dyes are used as cosmetics, for example, the henna that is used for decoration of the skin, and Henna can also be used in the decoration of pots. So tannins produced from the barks of some trees is used in those number of ways. Then there are also the anthocyanins. The anthocyanins are other waste products from plants that are of great economic use. These are substances, the anthocyanin, that give color to petals and leaves and even fruits. They thus stand as the different types of fruits like the blueberry, the pomegranate, bilberry, rosehip, the kako, and goji berry. Now, these are just some of the fruits that have very distinct colors as a result of the presence of the anthocyanins. Because of the pigmentation, the anthocyanin can be used to make dyes for fabrics. So there are many fabrics that are dyed using anthocyanin obtained from plants. Latex is another waste product. Latex is a milky substance produced by some plants. For example, this latex coming from the rubber tree. This latex coming from the rubber tree is harvested and then is used to make rubber. This rubber can be used to make tires for vehicles, can be used to make soles of shoes, gloves, and so on. So there are many products. There are many rubber products that are made from latex that is rubber in nature. Another product are the gum. There are different types of gums depending on the types of tree. But gums are generally sticky substances produced by a variety of different plants. For example, acacia. Some of the gums are edible, thus they are used in food processing, for example, in chewing gum. While the sapodilla gum, that is sapodilla, is used for the manufacture of chewing gum. The sapodilla is the edible gum that is used in the manufacture of chewing gum. Other types of gums are used to make adhesive substances like sellotape. Then we have many other products that are of great medicinal use, as listed below. This quinine, obtained from the Cinchona tree. Quinine is obtained from the bark of the Cinchona tree and some aloe leaves. It is used for treatment of malaria. It can also be added to drinks as a stimulant. Cocaine is obtained from the coca plant, particularly the leaves, and it is used as local anesthesia. But when abused, it causes mental and physical defects leading to convulsions, hallucinations, and addiction. So when used properly, cocaine is a very good anesthesia, so it can be used in hospitals where it is commonly abused. So it's one of the substances that are commonly abused worldwide. Cannabis is another excretory product produced from the plant Cannabis sativa. It is usually stored in fruits, flowers, and leaves of this plant. When extracted, it can be used to manufacture painkiller drugs. But again, when abused, it depresses mental ability and induces hallucinations. Nicotine is also an excretory product found in many different types of plants, but it is found in the largest quantities in the leaves of the tobacco plant. It is used in the manufacture of cigarettes, but it can also be used to manufacture insecticides and some narcotic drugs. Caffeine is another very common product, very common excreted product of plants. It is found in the coffee plant, different species, for example, the coffee arabica, in which the coffee berries contain large quantities of caffeine. It is also found in the leaves of the tea plant, the Camellia sinensis. So caffeine is used as a mild stimulant, for it increases mental activity and reduces fatigue. There is morphine obtained from the poppy plant. It is used to make narcotic drugs, but medicinally, it is a strong painkiller and can be used as a muscle relaxant. Cat, or commonly known as myrrh, from the plant Cat edulis. It's a mild stimulant. It's just used as a mild stimulant. Then there is colchicine. Colchicine, obtained from the genus Colchicum. There's a genus of plants known as the Colchicum. This substance is mutagenic. It can be used to induce mutation in cells. Therefore, for this reason.
Okay, so from the video, I think we have run quite a lot, especially to do with the economic importance of plants excretory products. So you can see, listening to the narrator from the video, you discover that these plant excretory products, man has really used these substances for economic benefits in solving other challenges that may be there in human life, diseases, okay, and so on and so on. So I want to move to the next item, assuming that there are no questions. And in case there are questions at this point in time, I would want to respond to the questions. So are there questions? Okay. Now, after looking at plants, excretion in plants, the next we need to know is excretion in unicellular organisms. And in particular, we focus on unicellular organisms like amoeba, Paramecium. And these microscopic organisms happens to have a very large surface area to volume ratio. So they have, even the innermost part of the body is very close to the surface. Is very close to the environment, the surrounding environment. So by simple diffusion, these organisms are able to get rid of their metabolic waste. So basically, if we talk about amoeba, we have freshwater amoeba, amoeba that live in fresh water. So assuming that's an amoeba in fresh water. So what happens? The metabolic waste produced by this organism diffuse out through the body surface into the surrounding medium, mainly water. I'm talking about freshwater amoeba. Now, this organism, even the innermost part of it, is very close to the surrounding environment. So because they have a very high surface area to volume ratio. So basically, simple diffusion is one of the processes that they use to get rid of metabolic waste. The carbon dioxide produced when there is fire is released into the surrounding water. Okay, the distance is quite short. So carbon dioxide, which is more concentrated within the cell because it's being produced, as opposed to the CO2 in the surrounding water, so it just diffuses out. Okay, hope the point is clear. So we proceed. I think I've just explained the point. So this is an example. It's a simple diagram. So amoeba has two types of vacuoles. I hope you know that. There's what we call the contractile vacuole and the food vacuole. This one is for two functions. One, digestion of the ingested food substances. And the other function is ingestion. The undigested and indigestible food substances are removed from this food vacuole, a process we call ingestion. This one is, okay, before I go to contractile, I've said there are two functions of food vacuole. One, digestion of the food substances ingested, and also ingestion. Contractile vacuole has two functions as well. Getting rid of metabolic water, getting rid of excess water, getting rid of excess water from the organism. Okay. In other words, it's also important in what we call osmoregulation. And as that excess water is being removed, we have innate metabolic waste like ammonia. Okay. So contractile vacuole has two functions. In case you are told, state two functions of contractile vacuole. One, you can just say excretion. Two, osmoregulation. It's get rid of excess water. Get rid of excess water. Okay. So I've just explained they can use simple diffusion as a method of excretion. They can also use contractile vacuole. Remember, we are looking at excretion in unicellular organisms, and we have talked about diffusion. Now I'm talking about the use of contractile vacuole. And you can see it's also involved in osmoregulation. So that's the point I wanted to put across. So the excess water that goes into the cell is pumped into the contractile vacuole. So what happens? The dissolved metabolic waste enters the contractile vacuole, raising the osmotic pressure in it, which then draws water into the vacuole by osmosis, the excess water from the cytoplasm, and then it is released into the surrounding media. So there's a typical question in exam where you are asked to explain why an animal cell bursts when placed in a fresh water, but amoeba do not burst. Okay. I hope, may I repeat the question? Explain why an animal cell bursts when put in fresh water. Amoeba do not burst when put in the same medium or in the same fresh water. I hope now the answer is quite clear. Amoeba is able to use contractile vacuole to get rid of excess water. An animal cell will just draw in water. The weak cell membrane will be unable, is unable to withstand the outward pressure, and therefore the cell would burst. Paramecium also has contractile vacuole. I remember saying that from the onset. Maybe you can see from this. It is on this slide. I'm trying to explain how the contractile vacuole is formed. Okay, you see, ammonia is highly soluble in water. First of all, it is drawn into the contractile vacuole, dissolves in water. We also have excess salt moving in. Okay, and then increase in size, and if it has accumulated enough water, moves to the cell surface, burst, and release the excess water together with the waste in it. So, as I was saying, unicellular organisms get rid of metabolic waste, or they carry out excretion by two main ways. One, we talked about diffusion. Two, we have talked about the use of contractile vacuoles. So you can see, number one, water enters due to osmosis. Why osmosis? What is drawing water into the vacuole? There are metabolic waste inside the vacuole. Excess water enters the vacuole, as you can see. The vacuole expands, okay, as it draws in excess water. All right, it becomes, it swells, and it cannot now hold any more water. So moves to the cell surface, bursts and releases the excess water together with metabolic wastes. That's why we are saying this particular organism uses contractile vacuole as a structure for excretion. I hope the point is clear.
Excretion and homeostasis in unicellular organisms. Most unicellular organisms, such as amoeba, live in aquatic habitats. Their metabolic waste, such as carbon dioxide, and nitrogenous waste, such as ammonia, tend to leave the body through simple diffusion. So there is no specialized structure for excretion. This is because they tend to have a large surface area to volume ratio. Some of these amoeba live in aquatic habitats that consist of freshwater bodies. In certain environments, their cytoplasm is hypertonic to the surrounding water that tends to enter their body cells by osmosis. In response to this influx of water, they form contractile vacuole. The excess water and dissolved chemical substances accumulate in the contractile vacuole. So when there is excess water, these amoeba form the contractile vacuole. Into this contractile vacuole, the excess water and any dissolved substances are pumped. Now, as the water accumulates, the contractile vacuole increases in size. And
So I think the point is home. The point is okay. Okay, at this point in time, I would want to maybe answer the questions that will be there. Questions? Questions?
Yes, Bona David.
Trying to respond to questions. I hope there could be some questions.
Yes, any student who has a question, can you please raise your hand or just inform me via chatting that you have a question, and I'll give you the opportunity to ask the teacher. Any student? Seems as if the lesson was well understood. Ni kama hakuna swali.
Hakuna swali. Maybe as I conclude.
Yes, sir.
Ahmed, yes, as I conclude.
Yes.
I think today we've managed to go through the plant, unicellular organisms, and maybe I can say something small about excretion in mammals. So specifically, we focus on the human being as a representative of the other mammals. So when we talk of excretion in mammals, we don't maybe talk about other mammals. We specifically focus on human beings and who happens to be the representative. So for mammals, like any other animal, they have well-defined excretory system. If you remember from the first video that we watched, you could see the skin, you'd see the kidneys, you'd see the lungs, well-defined system in the human body meant for getting rid of metabolic waste. Now, the human body has a very small surface area to volume ratio. So that means that we have tissues very far away from the site of excretion, or the site of the site of excretion. So, for example, all the cells in your body are respiring and in the process are producing carbon dioxide. But if you look at where the lungs are located, it's quite a distance. Okay? So it means, therefore, there must be a system well defined for getting rid of this metabolic waste. Having a small surface area to volume ratio, it means there are tissues that are very far away from the body surface. Diffusion cannot be an option for removing this metabolic waste from our bodies. That's why we have well and elaborate excretory system. So body surface not sufficient for the removal of metabolic waste. Reason being, our body has very small surface area to volume ratio. We have a very small surface exposed to our immediate environment. We have tissues deep inside, very far away from the external environment. That is the point. Most of the waste that mammals produce are toxic. Their rate of metabolism is high, and therefore, this waste accumulates very fast. So if you look at this vis-a-vis what we discussed in plants, you discover that rate of metabolism is high, more waste are produced. They do not utilize their metabolic waste, and therefore, that justifies why in mammals we have well-defined excretory systems. So in our topic, we'll be focusing on the main excretory organs in mammals, and we'll be looking at 4 of them. Lungs, which I'm going to maybe take the next 2 minutes and say something about. Lungs is covered in the topic gaseous exchange. So in this particular topic, we don't go into the details of the structure and functional lungs. The topic assumes that part has already been covered, but when we are looking at excretion, we are looking at the same structure, run, but now in a different context. Gaseous exchange, you run the structure and function of the liver in the context, gaseous exchange. But in now, excretion, the same structure, the same structure that is lungs, but now looking at it as an organ for excretion. So we don't go back into describing the structure. It's assumed you know that. But in this particular topic, we only mention that lungs is the excretory organ for carbon dioxide. Okay? And in gaseous exchange, I'm sure you even learned about how the carbon dioxide and oxygen are exchanged across the lungs, between the lungs and the lung capillaries. You also learned in a topic, transport, that is in animals, how carbon dioxide is transported from the respiring tissues to the lungs. As carbaminohemoglobin, as bicarbonate ions, as weak carbonic acid. And when those substances reach the lung capillaries, of course, the reverse process, which is catalyzed by carbonic anhydrase, the carbon dioxide is offloaded and is expelled through the lungs to the atmosphere. So lung well designed to ensure that the body gets rid of all the CO2 that is taken to the lungs for excretion. Now, I maybe want to stop there. And for the lungs, I don't think there is so much to discuss because it's already described under gaseous exchange. So basically, we only need to understand that lung is the organ for excretion of carbon dioxide. So in our next session, we'll be looking at the skin. I'll also look at the kidneys and the liver, those major organs for excretion. So unless there are questions, I beg to stop there, hoping to continue in our next session.